Slightly redirect the discussion to democracy. It's something that Steve mentioned, the growth of democracy around the world and the relationship with technology. And something I mentioned at the beginning, right at the beginning, which is a fear that we are seeing advances in democracy, we're seeing advances in global technology and global communications, but that there are pockets of the world which are being left behind, and a risk that we fall into a three-tier world, as it were. And I want to go right to the far end of the table to William, and I know you like to be called Gyude, not William, more, and ask William Gyude, whether that's something that you fear is happening, in particular perhaps in the continent that you come from.
I guess, again, what exactly is democracy? I mean, and first I just want to start here, you know. We're talking about information, communication, and technology. That is our age. That's our world. That's the world in which we grew up. And like, how many panelists here can create their own wiki? Like, how many of them know what a wiki is? The point I'm trying to make is that at least half of the panelists here should be young people. The point, for years, our father's generation, they basically did everything because we were future leaders. And that gave them the right to squander our heritage. And without due respect, you know, the gentleman here talked about making it fun. Like, where's the studies? I mean, I want to see the studies that show that if you engage young people seriously, they don't get involved. So you just engage them with fun. Well, that is, so when we talk about democracy, those are some of the things we should be considering, especially in the times we're talking. And like I said, yesterday we were here with about 60 students going over these same things, and we talked about that, like he's saying, about inclusion, about us wanting a voice at the table, not tokenism, not just being there so that, you know, there's a young person, a young voice there, but that what we say matters and that people actually want to listen. We want this not as a form of the popular rhetoric, but to become the ethic of our society. And honestly, what we talked about yesterday is that if this generation of leaders can't make that happen, if they can't make that the ethic of our society, then it's time to step over and let a new generation of leaders take over. And since the UN is a representative of its constituent members, then we're talking about the same thing happening in our representative countries. So when we talk about democracy, it's not just this far concept of people, you know, going to vote in Liberia and standing in line. We're talking about here, we're talking about in our institutions and in the structures that govern our lives, that our voices are reflected too.
Give us a sense, Gyude, of the situation in Liberia when it comes to access to that kind of information. How much do people in your country access the net? How much do they feel part of the global community that is developing with new technology and new information?
Well, I think it's hopeful because I talked to my mom. My mom lives on the border between Cote d'Ivoire and Liberia, and my mom is not educated, but I talked to my mom on her cell phone. So almost everybody has a cell phone now. And I finished high school in Cote d'Ivoire in the refugee camp, and that's where I heard about Berea College. And I Googled it, and I'm here today. So people, but then again, it's very, very lopsided. I mean, the people who will have access to that will be people like me, people who already have a foot ahead, you know, and I think what information technology does, especially to people growing up where I come from, and I mentioned that yesterday, is that it makes it even more urgent that development happens. I mean, take, for example, me growing up, or my brothers and sisters growing up, and if we get some money and we get 15 minutes on the internet, we get to see everything that children and young people growing up in America and in Australia and in England enjoy. Gee, we can even smell it, but we can't touch it. It's beyond us. And so what does that do to me as I grow up? And I see, the only image of myself that I see is one of deprivation, but I see young people in other parts of the world, and they have access to anything they want. Well, there's no healthy self-image for me or young people growing up. So in as much as information and communication technology has broadened our access and helped some of us to be able to see what we see today, it has also increased our sense of low self-worth, especially vis-a-vis young people growing up in other parts of the world. And so what does it mean then to be free and to be developed if we're not free to choose the water we drink, we're not free to choose the food we eat, but we can turn on the internet and see people in other parts of the world who are free to waste and throw away? What does it mean to us? And so I think information technology makes it even more urgent that development takes place, especially in parts of the world where I grew up.
Very interesting. I'd like to ask Mr. Kwan a question. You have had experience